Hey everybody, this is me and Gabby. Hey Gabby, you gonna say hello? You gonna say hello, Gabby? Just your tail? Okay. Um, I would like to talk about the autism assessment that I finished up today. Started last week with a meeting with the neuropsych doc. Um, he's not an MD doc, he is a doctor of psychology. So he has his doctorate, so it all works. Um, the meeting with him went really well. I was very impressed. I thought I was going to be answering a lot of questions, and that just wasn't the case. What ended up happening is he asked me why I think I could be on the autism spectrum, and I pulled out my handy dandy 6-page document, and I started or I attempted to kind of put it in somewhat kind of a logical order. It didn't work, but um, he just kind of let me talk and he asked some clarification questions, but that was about it for an hour. Um, didn't get to cover everything that I wanted to cover, so I said, hey, do you want a copy of this list? And so he took a copy, which I conveniently had 2 copies of. So, and of course, on my laptop here at home, I have a copy of. Um, he could not have been nicer. Um, Seemed to be very knowledgeable. Uh, he had a well, student slash intern with him who just sat and observed. Um, she seemed to be very nice. And so, yeah, that was that first appointment. And then right after that, I did some written testing. I did that classic almost 600 question NMPI 2 test. Um, Taken those twice before, but a very long time ago. Um, so I did that, and then another test that was like 160 questions that was very similar. The questions were a bit different, but very similar style. So I did those 2, and then they sent me home with a big packet of paperwork to fill out to bring back the next day. There were different questionnaires. Most of them were designed for parents to fill out for children. Um, but I think he uses them for a just for something to go off of that's more formalized instead of just writing stuff out. Um, and then there was a form that I circled never, sometimes, or often to different statements, and that was to test the executive functioning skills or lack thereof. Um, I had to fill that out. Then I had a friend fill one out. So I had my best friend fill that out. And then I actually ended up having somebody else fill out another one for me just because I felt that the 2 of them together gave a better and more complete picture. So, um, the office can do whatever they want with that, with the second one. Um, but I put a little note with it saying, why I had 2 filled out. Because I had to scan the form for my friend to fill out because she's not living in the area and you can't fold it up and put it in an envelope just because it's a carbon paper copy thing. Um, so I had the scanned copy in my laptop, so I sent that to somebody else last night, and she filled it out for me. And I printed that out and brought it in. Um, so we'll see what goes on with that. Um, then last week, last Tuesday, I had another 2 hours of testing, um, and that was like, oh, good lord, it was crazy. A lot of memory type tests. Some finding patterns and things, to find like the thing in the next sequence. Recalling numbers forwards and backwards. Uh, one series that I've never done before was she listed off, you know, numbers that like started off with like four numbers and then went up, and I had to not only remember the numbers but put them in numerical order. That was not easy. That was very difficult. Um, so that, the full 2 hours on that one. And then today I had another 2 hours of testing. Um, Kind of more of the same, a little bit different, but there's a lot of tests where they figuring out like the sequence and pattern and things. Um, and that actually I found to be quite easy. Some of them, sorry about that. One of the tests had different, increasingly difficult patterns to figure out, and I was able to figure them all out. One of them took me a few trials to figure out what the pattern was, but it's not expected for you to figure it out on the first picture. So, it's not like, I got a few wrong, but that's to be expected. But the rest of them, after I got the pattern down, I did really, really well. And then the last section of that was, there was no pattern to it. I just had to remember what the patterns were, and I saw pictures of the pictures that I had seen before and remember what the pattern was and answer. The answer was 1, 2, 3, or 4. In those, I only got one wrong on that one out of the whole big series, so I did really, really well. I guess that's fairly common with people with autism. Not that I'm saying that that's definitely what it is, but I'm just saying it's a common thing from what I've heard. Um, and I actually found that quite entertaining. There was some general knowledge type questions, which I did really well at. There's only like two that I missed. I didn't know the answers to. It's like, who's Catherine the Great? And then, how long does it take for light to get from the sun to the earth? That I had never heard of before. The answer is 8 minutes. So now I know that, but one of the questions, and they were quite surprised that I actually knew the answer to the very specific nuanced answer, was, what is the most commonly spoken language, native spoken language, in the world? And I said Mandarin, just because China is the most populous country, and the native language there for most people is Mandarin. The intern was doing the testing today, and the person who did the testing last week was supervising, and she's like, "You knew that?" I'm like, "Yeah." I'm like, it's not that hard. but she says, I had never had anybody be that specific. You know, people knew that Chinese, but I'm like, well, Chinese is just a reference because is an umbrella term for other languages like Cantonese and Chinese, or Cantonese and Mandarin. So, uh, yeah, things like that. There's some other. Oh, there's one other question. I didn't know who wrote Sherlock Holmes. I mean, that's not my thing, so I knew the answer wasn't Sherlock Holmes. But not that big of a deal. But like I said, there's a lot of questions that I knew. Um, for like vocabulary test, I had to come up with like definitions of how to describe things, and there was the last word. The words became increasingly difficult, um, and the last word was palliate. And like at first I was like, what the heck? And then I remembered from working with various clients and just general medical experience that palliative care is a term that's used for comfort care for end of life. And so I said, palliate is comfort. And they're like, yeah, that's right. Which is something else that they're not used to. Um, I may not use those bigger, more nuanced words for things, but I know what the definitions for them are if I see them. The words just don't come to mind very well. Um, so, yeah. Um, One of the things that I did too was you had to figure out the association between two different words, and the two words could be complete opposite. Like one is friend, one association was how are friend and enemy related. I don't remember what my technical answer was, but my first answer was they can be the same person that you have to end up getting a restraining order against. And they're like, what? And they started laughing. And I said, been there, done that. Um, um, so, yeah, it was really good. I was thoroughly impressed by the whole evaluation. Um, so I have a little less than 3 weeks, and I go in and get results. There is a slight possibility that they might have me do a little more testing, but that would be done over as a telehealth visit, which is fine with me. Most of the testing that I did this week and last week could have been done via telehealth, but it just would have been a little more difficult, probably would have taken a little longer, and just not my thing. So I'm glad I did choose to do it in office. Their COVID precautions were that you can't use the waiting room. So if you get there early, you have to stand outside or sit in your vehicle until they're ready for you. And the person who you're seeing comes out and gets you. They have you fill out the standard kind of COVID questionnaire thing. Um, you have to use hand sanitizer before you go in, and they sanitize like the pens and stuff in between every person. And then you go right back to the room that you're gonna sit in for the time being. Um, and then when you're doing the testing, you both have masks on, and you're about 3 feet apart. Well, it's not the ideal 6 feet, but in between the two of you is one of those big plexiglass shields, and there's about a gap on the very bottom about this big, and that's just so they can pass the book through underneath so you can see what you're supposed to see in the book. So they've come up with some very novel ways to be able to do the testing, which a lot of places have not done, which is what I ran across, which is what I came across when I was trying to find somebody to do the testing in the first place. So, um, very impressed by the whole process so far. So, uh, the 16th, I'm really excited for. Um, I have 2 appointments on the 18th with some of my other specialists to discuss the results that I get. Um, so, yeah. So, that'll be another busy week. Next week is going to be not so busy, but I have a big thing coming up on Tuesday, which is the election day. I'm going to be an election judge from 2 p.m. to 10-ish, or until we get all the closing stuff done. So I'm really excited for that. I actually get paid about probably minimum wage, could be a little bit more, but hey, it's money and something I actually would have volunteered to do. And when I said that I would do it, I actually didn't know that I was going to get paid. So, that's getting paid is a total bonus, which will be nice for like Christmas presents and things like that. So, yeah, very, very happy with the way things are going right now. More changes coming ahead for me soon. Um, but because of everything else that I have in place, it'll all be good. So, um, yeah. So anyhow, I will see you again on the 16th. I plan on making a video that day. We'll just see kind of how I process things. But my appointment is at, like, I think at 9 o'clock in the morning. It's either 9 or 10. So, I'll probably get something out that afternoon. Um, I plan on that day maybe taking myself out to lunch or late breakfast after um, my appointment, just for something to do. Maybe decompress, maybe write some thoughts down and whatnot. So, take myself out for a good breakfast. Yep, that's what I'm gonna do. And I will talk to you later. Bye.